Hey everyone. In this episode, we will talk with Angel Aviles and his amazing work, his approach to life and art, and some of the cool things he's been participating in these days. Welcome to the show, Angel. It's really a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for participating in the last volume of the Art of Sketch Cards. By the way,
Thank you for having me, for allowing me to include in such great projects.
So what can you tell us a little bit about what you're currently working on?
What I currently work on, you said?
Yeah. Have you projects going at the moment that you're excited about?
I just finished a set for Major League Baseball Museum Collection 2022, which was due today, but I got it out yesterday. Funny story, really quickly, because it's about tools and supplies. So at the end, I like to spray my cards with varnish, make it look good, give it some sheen, that kind of thing. So I'm multitasking, which I'm really bad at multitasking. I burn eggs. One time they exploded and I thought somebody was shooting in the house, true story. Piece of egg. Don't know how that happened, but it happened. But so I'm multitasking and I spray it. So I go back, I signed some cards, and when I go back to the cards, they were all white and fuzzy. I said, what happened to these cards? 16 cards. I accidentally sprayed adhesive all over on top of the cards instead of varnish. I spent about 4 hours spraying chemical, getting lightheaded, 2 gas masks, my hands are sticky, scraping with credit cards, razor blade, all this stuff. Luckily, it kept the ink and marker. Some of the gray pencil, the basic pencil that I used, that came off. Well, ultimately, it was what it was. So that's what I've been up to. I've been up to crisis mode, like most artists who do sketch cards. And I think I'm about to start another Star Wars set, Star Wars Finest. I think so. Once they arrive. Yeah, I don't like to say anything until they get here, because you never know, things can happen or something can happen to you. But yeah, and personal projects, of course. Commissioned when I can.
All three of us are on that project, I think.
Oh, great.
Hopefully.
Wait, let me say, I got to say, while I got a chance, Ingrid, your application of color and paint and your ability to just see light, with and create moods and atmospheres in a small, it's just great. I just love your style. I just love your style.
You are too kind, but we're here to talk about you today.
Well, I got that, and Lindsay, and of course, you are just your rendering skills and the peepers and all those things. But even your realism, and I just think you're a great fundamental drawer. I hate saying drawer; can make it sound like I put underwear and socks in you, but you know what I mean. Like fundamentally, I really do respect that. And I just think I love seeing all the different styles that come from people with the same materials everyone else uses. It's amazing.
Much, Angel. Like obviously, as you know, I'm a massive fan of yours. I was going to ask you about your PSC collections, because I absolutely love the fact that they are all in proportion to each other. Because when I look at collections, it annoys me, if something's not the right size. And if I was going to go for a collection of sketch cards, it probably would be yours, because of all the sizings, that they're all correct. I mean, how do you do them so small, like when you do a Grogu? And
well, one of the things, for one thing, I print out every reference exactly the size. Like, I have to do that. I actually have a video on my Facebook page where I do a pork. And I do it from scratch. And you see where I just kind of make a rectangle the size of the board right next to it. And I kind of line the eye and a couple of, places. And I kind of bring it up top and get a couple of lines. So almost like a mini grid. And then from there, I just keep referencing, going back. And luckily, I've gotten better. Because if you look at the first ones, they're pretty off. Like I remember the first Yoda I did. I swear to God, it was so frustrating because like his left eye, his right eye to my left, it was just one little white dot, and I kept missing, and he kept looking like cross-eyed, and cockeyed, and it's like, what are you looking at? Who's behind me? Like that kind of. And I'm like, And I just kept, and I put black on it and just go, and then it worked out. But the other thing is, I wear glasses. I have contacts now because I wanted to look pretty for the podcast. You know, I hope it works and show up the eyelash. But I can't see far very well, but I can see close very, very well. So I actually take off my glasses and I park my nose, I mean, within, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches of, you know, of the card itself that I'm working on. So ultimately, it kind of looks like a big screen TV from my perspective, you know? And so, and that's why it's another reason why I print out the photo reference. I have to, because I just personally, the disproportionate sizes, you know, working from one to another, it can make it so much harder. Yeah, I mean, it's just infinitely harder. But the other thing I learned was when I was using my phone or my iPad, my eyes had trouble adjusting from the light that was emanating from, you know, the device to the, you know, paper itself, and it was just like, yeah. So I've evolved in that capacity, but it basically is still gritting in my opinion, and any, you know, any technique that you can use to help. You know, I get amazed. I see people, they'll have like the computer up and they're drawing down here. They're looking at the computer and they're drawing. And I'm like, damn, that's impressive. Because the thing is, look at something and then you look at your drawing, those few seconds, you actually start to interpret what you see. And what happens is you start to draw accordingly to like your own ideals or what you think a nose should look like, or you lose track of the space where you're at, the relativity of the line to another, you know, space or line or mark. Those things, I try to eliminate that because too many thoughts. But it's not, give me 4 seconds here and there, and I'm thinking waffles and peanut butter. Issues, right?
That's actually a great bit of advice I got when I was at college. My tutor said to me, he says, don't draw what you think you see, draw what you see. Because like you said, your brain will just go, this is what a nose looks like.
Absolutely.
You know, you'll put those extra details in because you know what they look like, but they're not there. So
you can also turn your sketch upside down sometimes, and that will completely change the view of it.
I do that a lot. I'll turn, because sometimes like I want to get the reference as close, you know, to the drawing as possible, and sometimes too far away. So sometimes flipping them upside down so I can put the eye next to the eye or things like that are helpful. But it's true, because if you can reduce things to just shape or, you know, and be a bit more objective in that way, sometimes you can have a more accurate depiction or reflection of what you're looking at, you know. And there's things like negative space and other things like, you know, like that. So sometimes it helps to not look at a nose as a nose, so to speak, you know, if that makes any sense.
To look at it as like a shape instead of a nose, and making the shapes fit together, or the shadows as a shape or something like that, maybe.
Exactly. Sometimes you don't notice something until you turn it, or the mirror trick. You know, you put something in the mirror, which is funny. I gotta say, if you ever take a reference, right, and you put the reference up to a mirror, and it could be some, you know, like an actor that you know well enough, and you put it in the mirror because they look backwards, they look like, it doesn't look like them. It's like, whoa, that's weird. And you notice things like, wait, his left eye is bigger than his right eye, and you know, the side of his mouth drops on this side, you know, and things you just don't notice because we get so used to, used to seeing. I mean, you gotta imagine if human beings, for the most part, we all have the same feature: 2 eyes, nose, mouth, chin, right? All those things, and they're pretty much in the same place. But we can recognize people almost instantly by subtle variations. And that's actually what we're trying to pick up, those subtle variations. And sometimes it could be something like one eyebrow is higher than the other, but it seems, asymmetrical and just unnatural. But sometimes that's what it is. It's the proportion and relationship between, features on a person's face that we're trying to pick up. So sometimes we don't remain objective, but we get subjective, kind of like we were speaking about before, about noses and things like that, what we think. And, sometimes it's just, it's something to fight through, I find.
I've noticed that, well, when I do my cartoon work, sometimes I'll sketch them a lot bigger. I'm comfortable sketching at a bigger size, probably about that big. But I'll scan it, and then I'll print it, and then I'll flip it and trace it. But while I'm tracing it, because I'm tracing it from the opposite side, I can see if it's leaning or something's off, and I'll fix it at that stage, and then I'll draw it onto the card. So
Right.
it's good. It's really good to look at your stuff in a mirror, look at it upside down, look at the negative space. All that helps you with drawing, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I got to say, in college, I had a teacher who had us do exercises where we would have to look at the figure. We had like live models, and we would draw. But we were two things. One, never look at your paper. Only look at the model completely. Never look off the paper, at the paper. And two, never lift your pencil, hard to do with a brush, off the paper. So it's a lot of contour, and it's sort of like, so you're looking over here and you're drawing, and you're like, well, there's the slope of the forehead. I'm thinking about a profile, let's say, slope of the forehead, and here's the eyebrow ridge, and then the dip on top of the nose, then the nose bridge, and you're trying, then you look, and it looks like a Picasso, but not like the good kind that sells for like 2.5 million, like the Picasso that you tell your kids, like, that's nice, like that kind of stuff. But like, those things were, and funny, it reminds me something else, if you don't mind me going off on a bit of a tangent here. So I had an art teacher who taught us about drawing not from the wrists, but from the elbow and from the shoulder, right? And I find drawing cards are from the wrists for the most part, and the minis are like drawing from the knuckles, even smaller. Conversely, what he had us do, he had us go into the woods one day, and he said, pick out a stick, a nice stick that speaks to you, thin, something you can use like a sword, like a whip. And I was like, oh, this guy, okay, I'm gonna learn something or learn nonsense, but this is fun, okay, all right, fine, So I find a stick, this one spoke to me, great. We go back to the class, he got big pieces of newsprint, and he says, dip the tip of your stick in this ink. Then we had to stand back about 6 feet, well, 6 feet, I don't know, 3 feet, so let's say 4 or 5 feet. And we drew with the stick, the branch, I should say, dipped in ink so we could learn to be loose.
Wow.
And
that's an amazing technique. That must have been fun.
Yeah. And I just mentioned it because all those things help, all those things, and you keep them in mind. Sometimes there's that thought process. I actually have a BFA in oil painting, and I don't oil paint anymore because it's just not practical. But so I find myself doing more of the drawing from the wrist and the knuckles. I was doing these 7-foot abstract paintings. That's what I get, from my BFA thesis, in response to light and color and perception, and very abstract stuff. And, so this is not what that was, but somehow it all is still relative. It all influences, and it all makes, it makes up
who you are today, doesn't it? Because it all goes together, and things start falling into place. And like, I've always wanted to be a cartoonist, but doing all this work on realism has made my cartoons better. So everything just comes together in the end, doesn't it? Like, after a while.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of skill to do what you're doing, in terms of to take a recognizable face and then abstracting it to a cartoon, but yet it's still recognizable and keeping the features. And I know you've concentrated on the eyes getting bigger in a sense, but sometimes it works, better. Sometimes you got to work harder at it. It's easier, I should say, things like that. But there is definitely a translatable skill. I think I get so deep into realism that cartoonism or comic books, which I actually used to draw comic books. I used to color professionally. I find that hard now. I find it so hard to just draw, animation style or cartoon style, because my mind is so like, well, that's not how a shadow really looks. And,
couple of questions I want to ask you. Firstly, what materials are you using now on your work? Because you said you used to use oils, you don't use oils anymore. And what company did you colour for? I'm very interested about your comic book career.
Well, I did Arcane Comics. I did I did a graphic novel with Nico Leon, who now draws Spider-Man for Marvel. He got discovered from that book, of all things, right? But I did the colors. I did a lot of independent stuff for no big companies, no Marvel, DC, none of that. But I did ghosts for DC Comics for Static. I was doing the inks, the backgrounds for somebody, and I was like 16. I was getting paid $25 a page to like ink, like, you know, chairs and stuff like that. Never got any credit for it, but that's what ghosting was. As far as materials, right now, so I guess I'll start like this. I'll use my pencil, my mechanical 0.03 pencil, right? Super thin, and I make a chisel tip out of it, real light. So this way I get like a hair thin, and you need that for like for the miniatures, the eyes and stuff, the features. You need that so you can get accurate lines. Once that's down, then, and I might shade in a little bit just to indicate, you know. Once that's down, then I use my 0.3 Copic liner, multi-liner, I think it's called. And I'll use that to get usually eyes and stuff like that, whatever. And then once the inks are down, then after that, it's really just marker. I just use Copic markers like crazy, which I was resistant to at first. My first few sets were watercolor, acrylic wash, but like mixing and time and all that stuff. And it just took too long, and it was just too variable. And then, you know, consistency of color and things like that. Like Luke would come out like orange one time and greenish another time, and I'm just like, I don't know, like, you know. But then I bought some neutral grays, and I started to put neutral grays down, and then put the watercolor on top. And so it was just pretty cool, but time consuming, you know, kind of chiaroscuro kind of thing. I don't know if I said that. Chiaroscuro. I think the black and white stuff, you know, prior to painting, what we learned in oil painting. So I started doing that, and then I bought some reds, and I bought some blues, and next thing you know, now I have the whole set of Copic markers, like all the colors, and it's only because I literally was going to Michael's with 50% off and buying gift cards for 25% off, and I'll buy $3 markers for $1.20, one marker at a time. And then so you only can go once a day, right? So I'm showing up like every other day buying one marker, and they're like, "What is going on?" But I got like a whole set of like Copic markers, which is a few $1,000 for maybe, I don't know, like 600, 700, 800, you know. So that's what I got colored pencils, but I barely use them. I use them either for outlining sometimes when I don't want a hard line, and I want to keep I don't want the marker to bleed. So I might use a blue or red or something like that to make that happen. Or if I need to fix something. But I do use the black very thins a lot for shading, and I'll use the burnt umber very thins, which are very thin, hard leads to sort of punch things up if I need to. Other than that, I just, you know, I did do a set for Major League Baseball in oils, the first 5 or 6, and it took forever. And my wife was like, "What is that smell?" And I was just like, oil paint, turpentine,
Yeah.
desperation, disappointment. I don't know. Something's rotting inside of me right now. So the markers, which is probably why I'm lightheaded today, because
for a working artist, markers are a good way to go. Are you full-time?
You know, at this point, yeah, I would have to say, I would say it takes all of my time. I think, like, you know, like a lot of us, we're artists, you know, from the get. It's like the Picasso thing, you know, we all have the language as a child. Those that get to retain it, you know, become artists in a sense, right?
Yeah, but how do you manage the insecurity of being a full-time artist? Because I mean, you cannot say that you're secure. I mean,
Oh, absolutely not, especially with the medical bills that just hit up, because a lot of people don't realize, artists, we don't have healthcare for the most part. And
no,
that's something into anything political, social political in that capacity. But it's a truth that I don't think a lot of people realize. We don't have that. So, the income we get is really strained in that capacity. So you're right. So there is an insecurity at the moment, but also the future. For me, I've been lucky in that I have a very supportive wife who has, allowed me to be the artist, to be who I am in that capacity. And thankfully, she has a really good job. Like she takes care of a lot of my, ashamed to admit in that way. But really, I think my approach in life has always been, even though I went to college, I have an associate's in graphic design, I have a BFA in visual arts. I could have gotten a degree that was more practical, but I've never wanted to be anything else but an artist, right? And I've worked every job. I've been a bike messenger in Manhattan. I've been bartender. I've been a bouncer at club. I've worked at retail stores. I've worked at Universal Studios for a year. I was one of the people, out there trying to make everyone happy. I've done a lot of things in that way. But ultimately, I just want to be happy in life. So I'm okay with living life in a very bare minimal kind of way if I get to express myself and be true to myself in
so
that capacity.
you would find it difficult to go back to doing like a quote unquote regular job. It would be difficult for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I'll give the listeners a little insight here. I'm disabled. I was born with a club foot, and I was born with a cleft palate, cleft lip, and a few other things. So I've had about 35 to 38 surgeries growing up in life. So it's hard for me to do physical labor because of my leg and my back. And it's like real stuff. Because of it, my medical insurance is Medicare and has been since I was like in my 30s, which is really for 60-something-year-olds. That'll give you an idea of what I, where I'm at. But fortunately, that has given me a bit of an excuse to say, hey, I can't do this physical stuff, even though I have tried, you know. But ultimately, it's really me. It's like I said, it's my willingness. I just want to create art. I just want to express myself. I just want to be present for the moment and reflect how I see this world in a way that other people can hopefully understand that language. Ultimately, we are here for a short period of time, and I just want to make the most of it in that capacity. If anything, I wish I could walk around the earth butt naked with a paintbrush in my hand and painting and building things and
You would
just
have a following then.
yeah, like I can't, so I'll just make sketch cards.
Do you have any, is there something you'd like to accomplish with your art? Like you seem to be the kind of person, you have probably because of circumstance and events that have happened to you, you have a fairly positive outlook on life, and it seems to be extremely contagious. Like I feel really good right now.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Do you have a goal for your art or yourself?
Yeah, I mean, first it's a facade, right? Is it, I put it up, so it's a certain thing. I guess off camera things are very real in a sense, and that drives me in that capacity. But so I appreciate that. In that way. I do recognize that I have an opportunity that maybe a lot of people don't, or some people do, but just aren't getting, I guess, the pathways to express that opportunity. So with that, I take that seriously. So, you know, I'm very fortunate and grateful to be able to put work out there and to have people receive it. And with that, to me, it's a responsibility, you know, to myself and to art and to other people.
You think about what you have instead of what you don't have, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, because you don't haves are way more than the haves, right? I mean, someone said the other day, it's kind of grave, but you know, we live for a short time, but we're dead for a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of grave, but there's a truth to that, you know? So, with that, I think ultimately, honestly, artistically, it's hard to say what I want to accomplish because I used to be a spoken word poet. I went around the United States, Canada, actually, Vancouver, a couple of times performing at colleges and things like that, expressing myself verbally. I used to do abstract paintings in college. I did comic books. I did graphic design. I went to high school for architecture, Brooklyn Tech in New York City. I do sketch cards now, you know, things like that. And to me, they're all part of the toolbox of the language that we need to express ourselves. Ultimately, I would like to create something bigger than me, bigger than these simple restraints that we have. Like, I'm searching for the language to express how I really feel and think. And I find it so difficult because it's just not there. Sometimes, you know, an idea makes a great poem, but not a great drawing, or, you know, a great dance, but not, you know, a great sculpture, you know, things like that. So, I mean, ultimately, I'm trying to find the pinnacle of articulation in that capacity, but I don't think we're there yet. Like, how do we express love, you know, in with the words that we do or the art that we do? It's limited, and that's because we haven't found the language, and we don't know we will at some point. So for me, it's that journey, you know. Ultimately, I wanted to leave behind additional parts to the language of art that will help humans and, hey, animals and aliens, whoever else want to participate, express and realize this reality that we have here, because it's amazing that we're conscious, that we can perceive, that we can speak at this moment, that there's, you know, taste and feel and all those senses that we have the capacity for. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. You know, it's oceanic. You know, when you think of how much is out there, you know, like nothing moves me more than looking deep into the night sky and seeing stars just deep, 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 because who knows what's going on out there. We'll never reach those ends. Maybe, but for the most part, we won't reach all this. Is almost impossible. Well, I know I won't, you know? So I don't know what's out there. So this small blip that we're here, it's like, how do I express how I feel? I don't know, but I know that I'm trying. And I know that, you know, I'm fortunate to have people who pay attention to my doodles.
Those are incredibly, what's the right word to say that? Ambitious and honorable goals to have, actually. And it's people that, like you, I think that's especially want to share it, can maybe help us find those new outputs. I completely understand. Well, I think I understand what you're saying. You're trying to find the right way to output it all so that people can experience what it is you're trying to say, and we don't have quite the right medium yet to do it. But it's with people like you, I think, that are, you know, we're going to find it eventually, or maybe we already know what it is and we just haven't seen it yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What brought you to this? Is a little less cosmic, but it's still a big thing. Lindsay sent me a link that she had seen of you on Fox News. Tell us how you managed to get that particular interview. That was quite something, very interesting to see all of that going.
Yeah, well, I have to say, so as far as, my ability and, my insight and those type of things, it's not lost on me that there are thousands, if not millions of people who can draw, who can articulate, who can write as well as I can, and if not better, right? What happens is sometimes people get opportunities, and that's where the luck of the draw comes into play, right? And I think networking or just having to have the right person see you at the right time, the right conversation, it's amazing how those things bring ideas to fruition, right? And voices into, out of the darkness, right? So in that capacity, I had drawn some cards for Top Museum Baseball 2021. And in one of them, I did a Fernando Tatis drawing of him flipping the bat after a home run in the playoffs, which is, epic scene. And I drew it and I posted it on a San Diego fan site, and they loved it. And then one of the people who liked it reached out to me, and she said, "Listen, I saw your drawing. It's amazing. I love it. I'm from San Diego. As a matter of fact, I work at Fox 5 in San Diego." So I'm like, okay, where's, and then she says, "How would you like to come on the show and surprise our lead anchor with a sketch of him?" And I said, and she says to me, "How much do you charge?" I was like, "I'll just do it." That's opportunity. That's, that's fortune in that way. So it was a picture of him throwing out a first pitch at a San Diego Padres game. So I drew that, and he didn't know it was coming. But I did the segment, and I was expecting 2-3 minutes. It wound up being like a 10-minute plus segment where they were just hitting me with questions. And I think I spoke to you earlier about this. It was through Zoom because they're in San Diego. I'm in New York, and I had the earphones on, and the whole time it was a delay. So it was like they were like, so, hey, how, it, to jump, and I was like, what? So I'm trying to keep up, right? And I'm like, let me just kind of roll with it. But it, in the end, it worked out because more than actually being on there, let's say, which was a great thing, don't get me wrong, for me, it did validate my voice in that way. It made me feel like, wow, there's something there that people want to see. There's something there people want to hear. Like I probably said a few things in this interview alone that I'm going to go back and go, why did I say that? Like, peanut butter and waffles? Why? Like, like things like that. And why did I tell them about my medical history, right? I don't know. But end of the day, what I've learned that art, and this I learned through process in my early 20s, that art is best when it comes from veritas, truth. When you're honest with yourself, when you're honest with your expression, your emotions. Because of that, I say a lot of things, and sometimes I get in trouble because I say too much, right? Or the wrong things. But ultimately, it's kind of like what Lindsay said, there's a lot of bad, but the good that comes out of it makes it worth it. You're going to burn a lot of pots of rice before you make that perfect pot, And I'm not going to tell anybody that I burnt the rice, like about the black rice that I made that was supposed to be yellow. I'm not going to say that. But I'm going to tell you about the time I made the seafood rice that was like, paella from Spain or something, and say, oh, there was, I'll show you that, right? Ultimately, it was, I think part of the fortune, like I said, there are so many artists out there, so many voices, that have these abilities and can add to the lexicon of what we are, and how we express ourselves. It's just it was a moment of fortune.
It was amazing to watch and to see you actually so you on the interview, you know, I mean, come in, it's Fox TV, you know, and you didn't melt into a puddle or something like I would have or something, you know.
It was
You
so
know,
good.
kudos to you.
Almost cursed on TV. On TV, you're like, is there anything you can't draw? I was like, I don't know. Somebody with their pen and their
Yeah.
fall down. I let you fill in the blank. I almost just said that, like, I was like in my head, I was like, Angel. And that third cup of coffee was too much, you
I
know?
think we're kindred spirits, Angel. I often say the wrong thing at the wrong time and make an appropriate joke, and you know, but it just comes, you know, straight from here to here.
It's
It's
all
very
right.
nice.
Naturalness is you. You know, I mean, who are we if we aren't human beings who at night sit and go over the laundry list of regrets? You know, without those things, how do we become better people? You know, unless we take an inventory or we have a conscience that we, you know, because we don't care, and we're like, oh, whatever. That's more worrisome to me.
Yeah.
In a weird way. You know what I'm saying? So I actually appreciate that. You know, things come out of your mouth that, you know.
At least you mean it. At least you're honest.
Well, I think we're going to be winding this down a little bit. This has been amazing. I don't think I've ever felt so good after an interview. You were
Oh,
extremely positive, and I hope that people who listen to this are going to take some feel-good feelings away and be proud of who they are. And this has been an amazing time to actually meet you, as I haven't really ever met you before. Lindsay, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
Well, we didn't even get to the fact that you've come to so many realizations because you've had some health struggles over the past few years, and all this has sort of made you concentrate on just making things better for yourself, hasn't it? Your health and all that. We didn't even get to that. I mean, it's been so interesting to talk to you about everything. We didn't even get to that part.
Well,
But if you'd like to tell us just a little bit about how you're living now and how you're feeling, and you know, as opposed to how you did feel before. With
oh,
your
okay. So you're speaking about the medical issues and stuff that I had recently. Yeah. So for some people who might know, I'll try to go through this, you know, quickly as possible because it's so extensive to it. But about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was feeling sick. You know, I went to the hospital about 3 times. They thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was having a heart attack twice. It turned out they just couldn't find what was happening, but they did see I was dehydrated. So I started, you know, drinking Pedialyte and like 8 gallons of water a day, you know, peeing 26 times a night, you know, like that whole thing, you know, which for a 40-year-old is very, very inconvenient, right? But, you know, here I am, but I just wasn't getting better. Then they said, see a neurologist. So I saw a neurologist, and then they found after an MRI that I had a brain tumor. That was scary. It made me sort of reassess my life and perspective. And my parents had passed just recently, both of them separately in the prior 3 to 4 years to that. In my early mid 40s, so midlife, you know, crisis was hitting. I'm thinking I don't have much time left, right? I'll be honest, right? You know, this is how I felt. And I started to say, what do I really want out of life? Again, you know, what do I really want to do? And it's like, I just want to draw and be healthy, be happy and healthy. That's really what I want to be, right? So with that, I did a lot of things personally, like self-care, like I used to drink 3-4 cups of coffee every day, sometimes 5. I haven't drank coffee in about 7, 8 months. I don't eat sugar anymore. I'm putting kale in my smoothie, baby kale in my smoothies, right? I'm drinking tea, you know, eating lots of protein, all those things. And then it turned out a few months back, my tumor ruptured. And when it did, it was an excruciating migraine I went through for about 8 or 9 days. But I came out of it, thankfully. The doctors said it was a cataclysmic event, but luckily I survived it. And with that, I was like, well, damn, like, this is real, So I made these lifestyle changes. Even things like I would draw between 10 to 12, 14 hours a day, inhaling marker fumes all day too, right? And drinking coffee, right? So you can imagine what my nerves were like. And now I'll draw for an hour and a half to 2 hours, get up, go do a workout, eat, self-care, whatever it is, come back. I try to segment my days into an hour and a half, but it always leaks into 2 hours somehow, or rather. And I do that, but also my legs go numb from sitting down, partly because of my disability. So particularly my left leg goes numb. I'm also straining myself with drawing very small, taking my glasses off, getting the migraines. Like I said, I don't know if it was coffee, drawing, or brain tumor, but something was giving me these massive headaches. So a lot of self-care in that capacity, not burning myself out. I think those were a lot of the lifestyle changes, but also ultimately this idea like our tongues will be gray and ash soon enough. While it's pink, I'm going to let it go. I am going to just go ahead and express myself. I can regret what I'm going to regret. I may regret some of the things I said today, but ultimately, I know I spoke from the center of myself, and that I walk through this life expressing myself the best that I know how. And there's not a lot of time. It's funny because I'm actually getting a little emotional, so hitting the button there. But it's just, I just feel like I want to express myself and be healthy enough to do that. So all those things, and they're just part of life. Like we all have our adversities, and there's so much in this world going on. Even right now, there's people in our families, there's people we know struggling, all those things. I had a very rough childhood, very, very rough, things like that. And I mean, it sounds cliche, but man, if I got a roof over my head and food in my stomach and an ability to express myself and to communicate, like I'm one of the lucky ones. Even if I'm going through things, we're all going through things. And I'm not trying to, demonize anyone else's thing, because some, there are different levels or they feel differently, for different people. But I'm here now. And not to be self-centered or narcissistic, but I want to make my presence known.
You want to leave something behind you. You want to leave a record that you were here. And I mean, that's what we all want, I think.
You express yourself so well in it. I think you express yourself brilliantly with words. You're very poetic. I mean, obviously, I know now why, because you used to do poetry on stage. I didn't know that about you, and now I see why you're so poetic. But I think you express yourself brilliantly already. I mean, one day you'll find that special thing that'll, and you'll feel like, oh, I've given everything I need to give. I hope for you anyway.
Yeah, and hopefully I can take my spoils and build this great house that I've been building in my head since I was about 12 years old. My own magic little place, and that'll be my last monument to Angel Aviles.
Oh, well, we've loved talking to you. I love your outlook on life, your work. You're just, and you're fabulously funny as well. I've really enjoyed speaking to you today. It's been great.
This has been amazing.
Yeah.
I I appreciate meeting both of you. I appreciate looking at your wonderful hats. It made me feel like I should have my Yankee hat or something like that. But then, you know, I should take the spotlight off of you guys. Like I said before, I respect your work, both of you, your place in the pantheon of artists, sketch card artists and beyond. And, you know, I'm grateful to be a part of the journey.
Angel, I'd like to wish you like the best of everything. I have no doubt that you're going to succeed in perhaps unexpected ways. You just stick with it, keep going, and please stay in contact with both Lindsay and I hope people will find you. Where can they find you if they want to go see the amazing work that you've been doing?
I'm mostly on my personal page on Facebook. I have Instagram as well. I have a website, but I barely touch those, mainly because the interaction on Facebook has just been so personal and you know, and available. And that's where, I don't know, I just feel comfortable. Plus, I'm, you know, I'm Gen X, right? So like every other Gen Xer, I'm on Facebook, you know, yelling at the clouds. You know what I mean? That's forum. You know what I mean?
What is the name of your page?
Oh, Angel Aviles.
Is it just Angel Aviles?
Angel Aviles. If you see somebody else, it's not me. But it's my profile picture is a cartoon version of this guy. Maybe I should turn this way. I'm not sure. The Zoom has me one of these directions, and I look cartoon. You know, that's pretty much the way to find me. And after that, then it's like, then just prepare yourself for, you know, me talking too much.
Oh gosh, no, that's been amazing. Again, I'm repeating myself, but it's worth repeating. You're just amazing to talk to. Thank you so much. And I hope maybe down the road we can have you back on and see what you're continuing up to and how far you've gotten in all your amazing plans and stuff, if you'll have us.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully one day we can all meet in person. Maybe the next year or two. That's amazing. We should do a sketch fest or something like that.
Yes.
It's just international
sketch fest.
Yeah, you know.
You've got the name, we're good to go. Sketch Fest it is. Sketch Fest 2023.
Just before you go, Angel, can you say the word pants in your accent for me?
Like football, punt?
Pants. Like
punt.
Pants.
Yeah, like punt. Punt.
Pants.
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 You lifted your leg up, and I thought you were kicking, and I thought you were like punt, and I was like punt, like what do you mean punt? You know,
yeah, pants in British and pants in American and pants in Canadian. I don't know where I come from. It's
pants. I don't feel too bad. I once had some friends from England and we were hanging out, and I asked her to say fart in English, and I thought it was the greatest thing because she made it sound classy.
Fart.
Yeah. Fart. And I said, whoa, like a nice word. Like you know, so I totally get it. I totally. And butter. Butter is another one I like. Can you say butter?
Butter. Butter.
On other shows, I hear them say butter. Wouldn't like.
Yeah, I'm from Yorkshire, so we drop our T's. We're like butter. We're very lazy.
Yeah, see, so different. Like certain words, I should say butter. Butter.
Butter.
Butter. Butter. Depends who I'm speaking to. If, you know, I'm from the Bronx. If I'm hanging out with, you know, with my friends, it's butter. But if I'm in an interview, it's butter.
Yes, I'm the same. I'm the same.
Okay, well, we better stop this because we're still recording here. So I'll say thank you to the
Because we could go all day, couldn't we?
Oh my gosh, yes. So like everyone who's listening or watching, please go out and find Angel Aviles' work and let him know what you think. And please come back next week for yet another interesting chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel.
My pleasure. Bye, guys.
Bye.